This is a PowerPoint on one-time archetypes, starting with Plague Death Knight in the Titans expansion, and they're cool. I don't know, I like plagues. The whole idea of the game plan of plagues is you shuffle these 3 different plagues, Frost, Unholy, and Blood, into your opponent's deck through many different cards, and then you play Helia, which makes it so the plagues reshuffle, so your opponent infinitely has this ticking time bomb amount of damage in their deck. The plagues are a lot weaker than bombs, but because you can have so many, they just add up to a significant amount. Now, here's the thing. Plague Death Knight is a bit degenerate, I will admit. Helia is a terribly, terribly, terribly designed card, because why should your opponent always have this damage in their deck? Now, don't get me wrong, plagues are cool, they're really powerful, they kind of carried Death Knight for a while, but if you look at it from an objective point of view, they're such a terribly designed mechanic that I'm not surprised they'll never come back. That's a lot of these mechanics, right? One-time mechanics are mechanics that, they're experimental, they might come back in the future, might. I say might because almost always they never do. They're typically called parasitic mechanics, but I like to call them one-time mechanics because it sounds better than saying parasitic, personally. Now, are all of these some of these technically might not be, because when we get to one of them, I'll explain why. But I think one-time mechanics are not good for the game, personally. I think that it produces a sort of bad cohesion between expansions. If you have all these one-off mechanics that don't really meld together, like a lot of times happens, then a lot of classes are just left out to dry for whole expansions that really, really sucks. Then for Demon Hunter, I chose Relics. Of course, Relic Demon Hunter and Nathria had so many memes about it because the first card they revealed was Relic Vault, for some reason. So no one knew what was going on for the Relics for a while because only Relic Vault had been out, and they didn't release the rest of the Relics for a long time. So for about a month, you had no idea what any of the Relics were. So you had so many different Relic memes, and it was very funny if you were around during that time. But the actual deck itself, or archetype I should say, was very good after Relic Vault was buffed from 3 to 2 mana, and it eventually got Relic of Dimensions, which was a 5 mana, draw 2 cards, reduce the cost by 1, increased by the relics, of course, and that's the gimmick of relics, that they get stronger the more relics you play. Relic of Dimensions was nerfed from 5 to 6. You have Relic of Phantasm, which is summon 2 1/1s that get bigger. And then, oh my god, don't remember what it's called. It's 1 mana, deal 1 damage to 2 different enemies. Of course, that gets bigger. Or 2 different enemy minions. Of course, that gets bigger as time goes on. But relics are just kind of cool. They're a big, chunk is the best way I can describe it, of cards. There's 9 of them to help pad out, a slower style Demon Hunter, because they do fit in that very well. And that's a good niche to have, right? Is this big chunk of synergistic cards that are very powerful, that help you build your deck around them to do all these different things. You had a bunch of different combos. You had slower Demon Hunters that were like this. You had slower combo style Demon Hunters that love this. There's just so many different decks that made use of relics, and they're liked. People do like relics, and I wouldn't be surprised if they came back in the future. I think that this is one of the few on this list that probably will at some point come back. Then for Druid, I chose Hero Power Druid. I mean, obviously everyone knows that I like this one a lot. Hero Power Druid is just a big fan favorite. Everyone likes pressing the button. Pressing the button is very fun. So if you give your button +5 to be a +5 armor, +5 attack just from playing 2 Groovy Cats, 2 Free Spirits, that's pretty nice. You can double that up with your sing-along buddy, your garrison commanders, your popular pixies, which came out in this expansion as well. Or if you have more copies of Groovy Cat, more copies of Free Spirit, you can get even bigger hero powers. It's just a real good time all around. And if you've ever played even Druid and Wild, you know how fun it is to kill your opponent on turn 6 by having, by doing 20 damage to face just from your hero powers. It's so much fun, and I love it a lot. Then for Hunter, I chose Dragon Hunter. This one's weird, because it is a tribe, just like Mage, which we'll get to. It is a tribe. Now, Hunter has 2 dragons that did not come out in Descent of Dragons. Those being, Emerus, and then Carrion Drake, I think. So they don't really fit into this sort of mid-range hunter that gains a lot, I mean a lot of value from its minions. Rotten S-Drake is a 5-mana 6/5 that destroys a minion. Storm Hammer is a 3-mana 3/2 weapon that has effectively infinite durability. That is a lot of value from these aggressively statted cards. And you just play this mid-range game plan, and it worked out perfectly. People love this deck. Anyone that played it during the time, absolutely adored it. People want it back so badly, but they just haven't for some reason. Couldn't tell you why. And the reason I say that this is a little different is because it's a tribe, right? Tribes can come back to classes at almost any time without really fitting the style of deck, because they just do, right? When we get to Mage, of course, with Naga Mage. Naga spell, 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 Naga spell. It's like this sort of APM style deck where you're playing all these Nagas, all these spells, trying to cycle through. You're going to draw cards. You're going to get all this mana from your Spitelash Siren, and it's a big tongue twister to try and say. You make big boards in turns like 4, 5, 6 in Standard. It's not very good in Wild. Never was, so I couldn't really tell you what Wild would have done with it, but making these big boards, you do a lot of damage to your opponent. You just have so much tempo, and Spitelash Siren was nerfed twice. It went to 5 mana from 4, then went back to 4, was too strong, went back to 4 mana, and then was reverted back to 4. It went to 5 and then was back to 4. Very powerful card. It's just, this whole Naga spell sort of game plan has been really strong every time that they've done it. Naga as a class, as a tribe, is incredibly powerful in Standard. It's just, there aren't very many of them because it only came out in Sunken City in 2022, I want to say. 2022, off the top of my head, sorry. But, again, this is what I mean. They are tribal-based archetypes, which means at any point, Blizzard could give Mage more Nagas or Hunter more Dragons. They have it in Hunter, but they have in Mage. They printed a Naga in Festival of Legends. It doesn't synergize with this game plan in any way, shape, or form, so that's why I wouldn't consider it, a part of the game plan or a part of the archetype. That card actually is completely counter-synergistic to this archetype. I forget what it's called off the top of my head. It's a soloist card, so it literally can't work in this deck. But, I don't know. Tribal-based archetypes are hard to distinguish because they either get only one expansion of support, like we've talked about, or they get support over and over and over again all the time. But it's very awkward to talk about in the same way as other ones, because sometimes, Mage just gets a random Naga, or maybe one day Hunter will just get a random Dragon, doesn't interact with those cards at all, doesn't do anything, but it's still a Dragon. That's why I wanted to do this little breakdown when I got to these cards. Sorry for the rant, but, Then for Paladin, I chose Libram Paladin. This one's obvious. This is a huge fan favorite. This is one of the most popular archetypes of all time. You have these Librams, you have your Aldor minions, which reduce the cost of your Librams, and then they just give you so much value. You can have your 8 mana 8/8s that with Taunt, Divine Shield that heal your hero for 8. You can get that down to it's -2 and then -4, so it costs 3 mana. That's pretty cool. Then you could play your Lady Liadrin to get them back. You have these Librams of Wisdom that have infinite value. You can keep trading them off over and over again because it's a death rattle and you keep getting so much value. And they really took off with the introduction of Animated Broomstick and Penflinger. Penflinger making every single Libram of Wisdom also deal 1 damage for 1 mana was insane. Animated Broomstick made so you could trade off your minions. You could buff a minion with Libram of Wisdom, trade it off, and then buff it another one in the same turn by giving all your minions Rush. It was genuinely so powerful. It's a gigantic fan favorite deck, and I'm genuinely surprised they have never brought it back, personally. Then for Priest, I chose Automaton Priest. This one's cool. It's all about, getting as many copies of Astral Automaton as you can, summoning it from your deck, getting copies in your hand, resummoning it, and then you just make a gigantic board that your opponent, will keep trying to clear, but as they do, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's similar to Jades. In the past, I could have done Jades as well, but I don't think that they really meet the same way because it was also in 3 classes. But Automaton is just really cool. I don't know. It's really fun and wild because you can use cards like Confuse or Topsy-Turvy, and what that does is it keeps the permanent stats of the Astral Automaton. Say you play 10 Astral Automatons in that game. That means your Astral Automaton would have been an 11-12 But if you play Confuse on it, it will be a 12/11 that then gains +1/+1 for every Astral Automaton you've gained because it's an aura effect, which is insane. You can do some crazy OTK, or not OTKs, but you can kill your opponent from some crazy setups by having enough Astral Automatons on board that they just couldn't really play around because they can't really stop you from playing Confuse on a big board of Astral Automatons. If you have like 5 of these on board, and you play Confuse, you can just kill your opponent outright. It's crazy what you can do with this card. And then Astral Automaton, it's really strong in Standard. It was while in Titans. It's not as good in Badlands and Wizbang's Workshop, but it still was pretty good while it was in Standard. Then for Rogue, okay, so concoctions are a little bit weird. It wasn't really like a deck built around these like some of the other ones are, but concoctions are a big swath of cards that are very powerful. What concoctions are, they give you a spell in hand that's usually about 3 mana worth of cost, like 3 mana draw 2, 3 mana deal 3 damage, get a random, or destroy a random minion, things like that. But if you have 2 of them, they combine. So then it's like 3 mana draw 4, 3 mana deal 6, 3 mana destroy 2 enemy minions, 3 mana get 2 cards to your hand, that costs 3 less, stuff like that. And that's where concoctions really shine in Miracle Rogues, because they would be incredible to get things like 3 mana, draw 4 cards. Insane. In Wild, you actually did run Potion Master Putricide in just Pirate Rogue just for the value you would get. Sometimes you would just get 3 mana, deal 6 damage, and your opponent was like, what the fuck? Because they just died outright. Potion Master Putricide was so good at preventing your opponent from making board clears because Putricide itself has 4 health. So if your opponent couldn't kill Putricide, and the same turn it killed all your other minions, you would get all these concoctions to basically gain value from all your minions dying. It was actually quite cool and a lot more interesting than where Pirate Rogue is nowadays. Then for Shaman, I chose From the Other Side. This is like a big Shaman style deck where you play From the Other Side, you would summon all these minions and Fate Splitter. And then when Fate Splitter would die, and all your other big minions, it would give you From the Other Side back. So you would gain a lot of value from Death Rattles, from Reborn effects, just from good minions that have on-attack effects, things like that. But it was nerfed because Fate Splitter had its text changed to get what is it? Sorry, I just couldn't remember off the top of my head. It's get a copy of the last card your opponent played, rather than get a copy of the card that killed this. I don't remember if it was an intentional nerf the first time, because I know this card was changed twice. Because it and a lot of other cards were changed, like Monstrous Macaw and one other, I can't remember off the top of my head, that were all changed because they were having bugs for some reason they just couldn't fix. So Fate Splitter was changed. This is obviously the original version. So it just wouldn't work with From the Other Side anymore. I don't remember if it was changed individually to not work with From the Other Side, or if it was just in this big change to all these cards. I could not say off the top of my head, and it was a bug fix, so it's not like I could really look it up on the wiki to find it very easily. This deck is a lot of Shaman players love this deck when you could play it. It gave Shaman this kind of game plan that it never had before. From the Other Side is like allowed for these like death rattles to actually be played in Shaman, which Shaman's never been known for. Shaman's always been a battle cry class. They tried to push this death rattle sort of idea in March of the Lich King. It didn't really work until you had Fate Splitter. It was cool. I don't know what more to say. Sometimes things are just cool, and that's just enough for people to like them. Then for Warlock, I chose Excavate Warlock. Of course, Excavate is a mechanic that is in other classes, don't get me wrong, but Excavate Warlock stands above the rest in just what it did. It's not like you just got a bunch of value from the Excavate stuff like you did in Rogue, or you got like some, just a couple big minions like you would in Warrior. In Warlock, Excavate Warlock was trying to fucking kill you. The Azurite Snake originally was 10 fucking health. So, what you do is you try to hyper-complete the quest, or the excavates as fast as you possibly could to get the 4 excavates to get your Azurite Snake. Then you would just bounce the snake as many times as possible, play it with Bran, because Bran was... In Wild, you could do it, but in Standard, you would just play your, like, Saloon Brewmaster, things like that, your Zol the Gorgon, you would try and do it. It was just so weird. The Wild version wasn't very good. I don't know why I mentioned Brand, because the Wild version wasn't very good. You could do it, but it wasn't anything special. But in Standard, it was fucking insane day 1 of Showdown in the Badlands. And then by day 3, it was not a good deck. And then it was nerfed by, like, day 7. It's very weird. This is one of the cases of an archetype in a deck that really wasn't that strong and probably didn't deserve to be nerfed, but, you know, people hated it. It was really, really, really strong on day 1 because people didn't know what else to play, didn't know what was good. So it had those issues, but, like, I don't know. Like I said, this is the only excavate that I would talk about, even though, you know, a lot of it's not the only keyword that I'm going to talk about, of course, but a lot of keywords also have these sort of one-off mechanics because they're only in one expansion, and excavate, and the next one we'll talk about for warrior, frenzy. Frenzy really wasn't anything special in any of the other classes that had it. The frenzy cards in other classes, like, yeah, they're, you know, useful, right? And you're not upset if you have a frenzy card or anything like that. But Warrior really turned it up to 11 by giving you Overlord Sourfang, which would resummon your frenzy minions and trigger the frenzy effect and damage all minions. So it did a lot of things. And then you had Crash, Lord of Turtling, which is just a gigantic armor amount of on a minion. Gives you a 2/5 weapon. It's a 3/6 beast. It gets resummoned by your Overlord Sourfang. It's just so nice in all these different control warriors. And again, this isn't like a build around archetype like some of the others. It's just an archetype that really slotted well into all these decks, and it's just really, really nice. This is Magma Rager. I have to mention it. He loves this archetype. That's why I put it on here rather than some of the other ones that I could have chosen. But he absolutely adores this in Wild. He tries to tell me that this is still good in Wild. I don't know if it is, but it's something really fun. If you've never actually played it, it's pretty cool, I will be honest. Overlord Sourfang resummoning, you know, your Crash, your Whirling Combatants, your what's it called, Stonemaul, Anchorman, stuff like that. It's just really nice because they gain a lot of value. You know, your Stonemaul Anchorman will be like a 4/4 with Rush that draws you a card instantly. You know, of course, Crash gives you armor, and they'll give you the Death Rattle, do all that stuff. Just incredible amounts of value and just resummoning these big minions that Warrior doesn't really have. Warrior doesn't really have resummoning effects on minions like this, so it's just interesting. It's just an interesting take on the Warrior class. But that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on on YouTube, of course. Sorry, I just got finished doing a lot of stuff, so my brain is a little fried while I'm recording this. I streamed for 4 hours, then I did my podcast for another hour, so I'm a little fried right now, but yeah, if you enjoy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to check out the streams on weekends starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday and Sunday. I'll go to about 6, and you can join the giveaway for my 2 giveaways for Perils in Paradise pre-orders. Gosh, say that 10 times fast. Perils in Paradise pre-orders. If you want to join one, you can either just make sure you like, comment, subscribe, comment your favorite Hearthstone card down below, or you can become a member on my channel through any which way you want and be joined in a giveaway that way. Sorry for this one being really, really, really off topic. I'm going to be honest, I'm just really frazzled right now, but I'll see you guys next time.
Shadows are rising again, darker than they've ever been.